he creates the music that I imagine in my head, you know? It's like, if I were to imagine the best music I could think of, Neal Morse creates it somehow, you know? That might be a weird way to put it, but so we have this. Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle. This is an exciting album spotlight that I'm doing today. I'm doing a brand new album review, one that I've been super excited about. I've been anticipating for quite some time. And this is the new Neal Morse Band album, Innocence Danger. So excited to be able to talk about this one. I imagine this is probably going to be a little bit on the lengthier side compared to some of my other reviews because I have a lot to say and I want to go through it pretty thoroughly. But I'm excited to talk about it. So excited. It's probably well known to most of the people watching this that I'm a huge Neal Morse fan. Like, next level Neal Morse fan. He's my favorite artist of all time. Just everything he does, he makes the music that speaks to me. I really appreciate Neal Morse as an artist. I've followed him for a long time. He's one of the first new prog acts that I really found and fell in love with. I've been a huge fan ever since the Spocksbeard days when I discovered Spocksbeard. And so this is really exciting to come across a new Neal Morse Band album. This is the fourth Neal Morse Band album. The first Neal Morse Band album was The Grand Experiment, which came out in 2015. It was kind of the start of a new era of Neal Morse music. Of course, Neal Morse started in Spocksbeard, left the band back in about 2002, I believe, when right after the release of Snow came out. And then he went off and did his own solo career. And he started with Testimony and did a slew of albums, many of them concept albums, leading all the way up to Momentum, which came out, I believe, in 2012. But after that, he sort of reinvented himself, and this group was formed of Neal Morse Band. What's interesting about it, he kind of auditioned some additional members to be able to join the band, and it ended up they brought on board, mostly for touring at the start, I believe, they brought on Bill Hubauer and Eric Gillette, and of course Mike Portnoy and Randy George were already making music with Neal Morse throughout his whole solo career. So it was kind of a natural group that all formed together, and they decided, why don't we make an album as a band all together, since there was such chemistry in their live performances. And so that led to Neal Morse Band being formed and the Grand Experiment coming out in 2015, which really injected new life into Neal Morse music. I think it brought more of a collaborative spirit and brought some of these new fresh ideas. And I think it was the perfect timing for Neal to kind of reinvent himself a little bit and for this new stage of his career to start. And that led to The Similitude of a Dream, which might be my all-time favorite Neal Morse album. It's close, but it's definitely up there. And then The Great Adventure, which was sort of a follow-up to The Similitude of a Dream. So now that leads to their fourth album, Innocence Danger, and it appears that they really wanted to make a non-concept album this time, since they did two big double concept albums that were related and told these big epic stories. This time they went in wanting to just make a regular album of songs. That was the intention, and really at the outset they were going to make a single disc of songs, just good prog songs all in one disc. And of course they ended up with so much material, they ended up putting together a double album, and that's what we've got now with Innocence Danger, which is a great album. I'll just say it now. It's incredible. It's one of the best prog albums of the year. You all should go out and pick this up if you haven't yet. In my estimation, as a big Neal Morse fan, I just find so much here that's just excellent. The band is firing on all cylinders, and it's really an amazing album that showcases this genre at its best to me, and has a level of professionalism and ability that's almost unmatched in the prog world. So I definitely recommend it highly. And what's cool about it is it's kind of structured very interestingly. It has two discs, and each disc is kind of its own thing. The first disc is the shorter, poppier tracks. And of course, when we say shorter tracks, when we're talking about a band like Neal Morse Band, we're there's a lot of like 8 minutes and things in that realm. So it's not really like all 3-minute pop songs, but it's the shorter, like more pop influenced tracks on that disc. Whereas the second disc, which is labeled kind of the Danger side, where the first disc is Innocence, is the big epics. It's 2 huge, massive epics that cover the second disc. So interesting structure. I kind of go back and forth on if I like that structure, to be honest. Sometimes I think it might be better if it was mixed around a little bit and had more variety, because it's a lot to take in when you have those 2 massive epics at the end. And sometimes the poppier disc, sometimes I feel like could use a little bit more of the harder edged prog at certain points, you know. And it's not like, you know, there are definitely proggy moments on that first disc. I'm not saying there aren't. But sometimes, you know, I wonder how the album would have fared if it kind of got shaken up a little bit and maybe an epic was on each disc and kind of with other songs around it. But I trust the band to make the best choices about how the album should be structured. So I'm not criticizing it at all. I'm just kind of creatively wondering how it might have been different if they would have just kind of mixed up the tracks a little bit. But that being said, what we've got here is all incredible music, every song, and it's just such a fun album to listen to, and perfect for these times where I at least need kind of an uplifting, positive experience. And this album really covers that in an amazing way. Something to be said about this album is the collaborative nature of it. It's well reported now that Neal Morse came into these writing sessions with no material pre-written. You know, usually he'll come in with lots of demos and material that ends up making it on the final version of the album. But this time he specifically came in with nothing preconceived, and they kind of just came together and developed this album together. I believe Bill Hubauer came in with some things, and Randy George came in with some things. And so it kind of added to that collaborative nature and allowed the other band members to really contribute a lot to the songwriting and to the development and arrangement of these tracks. And I think that's really apparent and gives the album a fresh vibe, even more so than maybe Similitude and Great Adventure had, because it's even more collaborative and even more leaning on new sounds and new ideas, I think. And what's so cool about Neal Morse Band that I think they expertly do is that it is comfort prog in a sense. It is like, if you love Neal Morse like I do, it's like there's something really comforting about Neal Morse's music and his style, and it's something you can rely on. It's something that, you know, has a similar structure and a similar, you know, he has a very specific sound that's very much his own and that's permeating throughout the record. You know, it's definitely a Neal Morse record. There's no mistaking. It's not like he's all of a sudden doing a whole new sound and a whole new reinvention. It's definitely the Neal Morse style, but they balance that out with infusing some new sounds, infusing some new ideas, bringing in more collaboration and doing things a little bit more differently, just enough to give you that variety and give you all that on display. So it's an incredible album, and I'm really happy to have it and to be able to talk about it and to review it. So this is really exciting. Another great feature of the album, before I get into kind of a track by track breakdown, is the vocals, which has been a hallmark of Neal Morse Band since the start, I'd say, but I think it's even more emphasized here that everybody in the band sings, and specifically we have 3 really stellar lead vocalists who almost evenly take over vocal duties on the tracks. So you've got, of course, Neal Morse, and you've got Eric Gillette, and then you've got Bill Hubauer, and also Mike Portnoy does some vocals as well. But I'd say those 3 are probably considered the main vocalists. Mike Portnoy sings a few verses here and there and does a lot of great work with the harmonies. But it's really cool how they share the vocal duties. Even within the same song, they'll have like one person sing the verse and then another person sing a bridge and then the other person sings the chorus. And so it's kind of gives this more collaborative vibe and gives, you know, each singer their own chance to shine. And they all have kind of a very unique tone, very unique style of singing that I think adds to the variety, but they blend well all together. So really expertly done. The vocals on this album are just killer, and I think that needs to be highlighted and really showcased, you know, really given its credit for being one of the best features of the album. I kind of wanted to show off the album itself that I got, kind of the packaging and all that kind of stuff as well. I did get the because I'm crazy. I got the CD version here. I mainly got this because I'm also going to pull out the vinyl, which the vinyl also has the CD included, but this has the documentary. I love their DVD documentaries, so I had to pick this up purely just to get the documentary, and just because it's cool to have all versions of an album that I love this much. So I have it on CD, but what I really wanted to showcase is the vinyl, which is here, really well packaged. This is signed by Neal, which was really exciting to get that. It has kind of this outer sleeve. This is the sleeve that houses the vinyl inside of it. So that's really cool that it has kind of that sleeve aspect. And then inside we've got like two different packages here. Move over a little bit so you can see this. We have this, which kind of houses two of the vinyl in here, and then we have the third that is housed in this part. So kind of gives, additional artwork and cover. So what's a cool feature is that each vinyl here is a different color. So the Innocence side, we've got the white vinyl, so kind of signifies innocence. And then we also, on the kind of Danger end, we've got just your standard black vinyl. But there's also, since this is 3 LPs, there's also a middle one, and so it kind of skirts the line in between and ends up being the gray. So I thought that was cool, this idea that, because I always love that about the packaging, is that it's, when it's this colored vinyl or cool covers or whatever else, that I like it because it really complements the album itself. And so in this case, you can see how the Innocent side would be kind of the pure white side, and then the gray kind of leading into the Danger black side. So I don't know, I just thought that was kind of a neat touch and wanted to showcase that as part of the packaging. But all told, it's fantastic. I don't think I gave it enough justice yet, but the band photos and all that stuff. Of course, inside is the booklet here that has all of the lyrics and all of that stuff. So really great, just all told, great packaging, and really excited to receive this. And along with this, which I'll talk about later, I also got the Morse Fest 2019 DVD, CD, Blu-ray package, so that should be a review as well in the future. So just wanted to highlight that and showcase some of the packaging, which I think is really expertly done and adds another element to the album for me as a collector. So there you have that. So getting into the music on the album. So I'm going to talk a bit about the tracks and kind of some of the background of the tracks. I've been listening to Mike's commentary on each of the tracks, which you could check out on YouTube. He does this on, I believe it's on Inside Out Music's channel, and it's really informative. And I'm going to talk a bit about kind of some of the commentary that he's given on the tracks, and my own impressions, of course, mixed in. So when we start out with disc 1, Innocence, we start with Do It All Again, which was the first single that was released for the album, and it's kind of your typical opening track from Neal Morse Band. It very much kind of harkens back to The Call from The Grand Experiment, and it really comes out with this kind of triumphant opening. It has the kind of multiple vocalists that is a big feature on the album. You have Neal singing the verse, Bill singing the B section, and Eric leading the chorus with this great 3-part harmony that's really expertly done. Mike Portnoy talks about how this was one of the first tracks that they worked on in the studio, and it stemmed from ideas that Bill Hubauer brought in. The intro and motif was one that he brought in and that they built on and developed from there. So really a great track and a perfect single to kind of get you excited about the album, and I think it's a great lead off. And it still remains one of my favorite tracks from especially from this disc of the album. Then it moves into Bird on a Wire, which subsequently was the second song released as a single, and also the second song that they worked on in their sessions as the Neal Morse Band. And once again, it's a great collaboration with a lot of different elements coming together from the different members. The shreddy beginning part was brought in by Eric Gillette, the verse feel came from Randy George, and then the chorus was something Bill Hubauer brought in. So once again, all very collaborative, and once again, not as much inspired by like something Neal Morse brought in. He's kind of almost, in a sense, taking a back seat a little bit to let these other guys shine and bring in new material. So, but of course, there's a lot on the album that Neal was heavily involved in and wrote too. So I'm not saying he's not a primary writer on the album. Obviously, he is, but you know, it's just cool to see this collaborative nature and other band members bringing forth material that really gets developed into some of these great tracks. And so we've got a great track here with Bird on a Wire. It kind of has this triumphant opening. I love the like triumphant keyboards that are on it. Once again, there's a mix of vocalists. Neal sings the verses, Eric Gillette sings the chorus, and Bill sings the bridge. Some great jamming and a very cool solo section. Mike Portnoy talked about how it's like 70s Elton John, like Funeral for a Friend or Pinball Wizard. You know, it's really a cool track that I think really plays well on the album, and I think is a really fun, adventurous, exciting track. So I really like that. Then we move into more of a kind of a poppier number, Your Place in the Sun, which kind of brings to mind like Steely Dan and the Beatles and things of that nature. Maybe a bit of like Toto at their poppiest. You know, it's a really cool pop song. It's kind of growing on me. At first I thought it was maybe one of the weaker tracks on the album, but I like that poppier feel, and I love they all get a chance once again to do vocals. They trade off, all four of them. This time Mike Portnoy also does vocals. Once again, that chorus with the Beatles sound kind of came from Bill. Once again, Jellyfish is maybe another benchmark you can look at for this. So it's just a really cool poppier song that I think holds a really cool place after these kind of two almost bigger prog mini epics before it. You know, it kind of has a cool place in the track listing. Then we move to Another Story to Tell, which is a really cool, once again, shorter kind of poppier track as well. This one was a demo brought in by Bill that Mike immediately really latched onto, with kind of almost a feel like the 70s AOR feel or pop influence, like Billy Joel or Supertramp or Toto, Hold the Line kind of feel. And it gives Neal a chance. Neal does all the vocals here, so he really gets a chance to kind of just do a traditional Neal Morse sung song, and it's really cool. I love the verse feel. It really is a cool groove and really an exciting little track that kind of is a good little track to kind of keep the album moving along here. The Way It Had to Be was a leftover idea from the Great Adventure sessions. It seems like it was meant to kind of, when they were originally developing that music, it was going to kind of become part of the music before maybe The Great Despair, but it just didn't make it onto that album, so they brought it out. Once they, like I mentioned, they were deciding to expand this into a double album because they had like over 80 minutes of material, so they were trying to find new tracks to kind of add to beef it up into a double disc, and this was one of those tracks that they pulled back and said, this was really cool, let's develop this into its own track for the album. And it's really has this Pink Floyd vibe, very laid back. Eric Gillette gets a chance for the lead here, and he does an excellent job. There's some great, almost David Gilmour style guitar work, and so it's just a super chill, cool track that is one of the highlights to me of this first disc. I think it's really excellent. Then we get kind of this 1-2 punch of Emergence, which is a acoustic guitar piece by Neal Morse, very similar like to Chautauqua or the beginning of Distance to the Sun, you know, or even, you know, Steve Howe style guitar that like Mood for a Day or the Clap, you know, really cool just acoustic guitar playing in almost that kind of cool signature acoustic guitar style by Neal. And it sounds like this was brought in also to kind of pad out the album a little bit, and was kind of brought when Neal had an idea that maybe they'd all do kind of solo spots similar to like how it's done on Fragile, but they kind of just decided to go with this, and it serves as the perfect lead-in to Not Afraid Part 1, which is like a classic Neal Morse style ballad, kind of similar to June or Distance to the Sun, or even Waterfall from the Grand Experiment. Just a beautiful track with these really sweet 3-part harmonies, kind of Crosby, Stills and Nash style harmonies. It's another classic moment, and I can imagine them playing it live on stage and kind of all coming to the front of the stage, playing their like acoustic guitars and singing these harmonies together in a more of an intimate kind of setting. That's how I imagine it. We'll see if they do that on their upcoming tour, but I'm really in love with that track. I love those style tracks. I think June is just such a beautiful track from the early Spocksbeard days, and anything that kind of is inspired like that really is something that I adore. So definitely one of the hits from this album for me. I love it. And then it gets to the finale of the first disc, Bridge Over Troubled Water, which of course is a cover of the classic Simon and Garfunkel tune, very much in the spirit of the Yes cover of Simon and Garfunkel's America, which, you know, they really brought a lot of prog elements into it. And it's kind of interesting because these songs, Bridge Over Troubled Water is just a really, you know, standard pop song, but they really transform it into this big prog epic. And what's interesting about it to me is that it almost feels like they're playing in the style of Yes. Like, not only are they doing a cover of Bridge Over Troubled Water, but they're kind of doing a cover of Yes covers in a sense, because I feel like there's parts of this that it's almost like they were imagining, what if Yes covered this song, what would it sound like? And this is kind of their take on that. And so it sounds like something that Neal and Bill kind of worked on together once again to kind of bring additional tracks to kind of make the album longer and sufficient to cover a double album. So really proggy, really cool, great soaring vocals, and just really gives that epic feel and kind of is a good little closer for this disc of the album. But we haven't even reached the best stuff yet, in my opinion. So it's already so strong, already so much there to grasp hold of and to love. But really, to me, the main attraction of this album is the two epics on disc 2. Just all-star Neal Morse epics, just beautiful, well done, well crafted, not a moment wasted. Just every single moment is amazing. It's so varied and interesting. Feels like classic Neal Morse, but also introduces some new things in the mix as well. So it's just kind of that perfect balance and blend. I feel like Not Afraid Part 2, the first of the two epics, is maybe the more standard Neal Morse epic that you might expect. It has kind of all the signatures of what you'd expect, especially the intro. Starts off with kind of that cool piano, slow intro to kind of introduce the theme before the band kicks in with kind of that drum and bass thing that they tend to do in their overtures, before adding in keyboards and all the rocking elements to kind of give you that overture feel before we get into the main vocal that explores the main part of the song that, you know, will be reprised in grander fashion towards the end of the song. And one of the best moments to me is there's this big dramatic moment of Neal, you know, where he's singing this follow, and it's just like it goes into this minor key that's really interesting and epic, and I just really love that. And then we get into a cool groovy section from Bill with this like Supertramp style keyboards, and before the whole band like pops in with this great chorus of like, mystery men, won't you stop and listen? You know, it's just like so cool, like this big grand Styx or Kansas kind of moment where the vocals come in, and it's just this really powerful rocking moment with these great vocals. And then it gets into more of a typical Neal Morse driving rock section with strumming acoustic guitar and powerful drumming and keyboards and Eric Gillette solo that you'd expect, and all the proggy fun moments before we kind of get back to that reprisal of the beginning section, sung by Eric Gillette this time in that epic fashion of bringing it home with that vocal, you know, typical big ending like Neal Morse Band does the best, you know, very reminiscent of like the ending of Similitude of a Dream and things like that. So just a perfect epic that is just exactly what you might expect from a Neal Morse epic, but enough variety and interests and differences and collaboration from the other members to kind of give it its own stamp and its own feel. But then we reach Beyond the Years, and Beyond the Year, it's early days. I've only had this album for like a week now, but this one feels extra special to me. This feels like it may reach the heights of like some of the best stuff that Neal Morse has been a part of. One of his best epics of all time. This is just done expertly. It's total sonic ear candy just all the way throughout. All the keyboard sounds, all the elements, the way it moves from section to section, all of the cool proggy interludes from one thing to the next. It's just perfection to me, and it has the most epic conclusion of all time. It's just everything they do done at an expert level with a lot of different things thrown in. It's 30 minutes long, and it has like everything but the kitchen sink in there. Some new stuff that's like not something I've heard much from Neal Morse Band, but then some of the hallmarks that you'd expect too. It's everything all at once, and it's amazing. It starts with like this orchestrated keyboard stuff with some heartfelt vocals from Bill Hubauer before we move to a piano medley and Neal Morse singing kind of what will become one of the main melodies of the song. Such a great melody, and Eric takes over with his kind of piercing vocals that are just so stellar with the B section before the band kicks in with the main theme. It's all excellent. It introduces the song perfectly before we move into kind of a proggy section with almost that kind of Spanish style, flamenco style guitars and that kind of mood that Neal Morse tends to do so well, kind of built up into a proggier moment. Great instrumental bits and leading to a more heavier section. And so it moves from there. It's kind of hard to really discuss every movement and moment of this track because there's so much going on there. There's this great instrumental section that leads into some more orchestration and keyboards. There's a Gentle Giant type kind of vocal counterpoint moment that I'm always a sucker for. One of the greatest moments that I have to mention is a section about halfway through where Bill Hubauer kind of has his moment to shine. It's this like kind of laid back, funky organ and very Pink Floyd groovy vibe, and he has these great vocals. Bill Hubauer, I love his voice. He adds so much to the band, and I know that he had a large hand in composing a lot of parts of this epic. This is kind of largely his baby, I think, in a lot of ways. And so it is so epic, and it leads to this like amazing synth solo that's just soaring and builds, and it leads to a guitar solo by Eric Gillette, and it's probably the most powerful moment of the whole album to me, is this moment where they just build into this so epic part. It's wild that they're able to bring so much emotion and so much build up to this section. It's really next level. And then there's still like 10 minutes left of the track, so it leads to more instrumental craziness. There's like this drum, bass solo that goes on, and then just the whole band shines with this like crazy complex instrumental section with the different changing time signatures and all of that stuff. And then the finale, once again, like I said on Not Afraid Part 2, it's majestic and powerful, harkening back to like the ending of Similitude of a Dream, which to me is one of the best epic closers of any album. So here we go again, and it's almost brought to another level with this ending, which it's so majestic and powerful. And Eric Gillette's voice, once again, he's singing high and just brings it home with his vocals. There's guitar solos aplenty. It's just, they return to all the stuff that you heard from the beginning. It's kind of a perfectly symmetrical track where they end it at the same place they started it, and it's pure bliss in music for me. It's just everything you'd want from this type of progressive rock. I just totally am in love with this, and it probably one of the most interesting parts of it is it kind of ends abruptly. It has this play out, it's kind of doing its thing. It's doing that like keyboard orchestration that started the track, and then it just ends and cuts off right there. And it sounds like that was intentional. I think that's something that Mike Portnoy likes to do because it harkens back to like the Beatles and how they did that in I Want You, She's So Heavy. Kind of has that moment where it just keeps replaying that section and then it just stops abruptly. It's also part of Pull Me Under by Dream Theater, so that's why I connect that with Mike Portnoy and something he likes to do. just ending the track straight. It's just kind of a style. And it kind of is interesting because it surprises you, and then you're kind of left in that silence, kind of thinking about what you just experienced and trying to ruminate over like what it means and what the song means. And so I kind of like it. I could see how some people might be thrown off by it, but it's really, really cool. And it's, you know, because of how strong the whole track is, I don't find any issues with it. So I think it's pretty obvious. This is an amazing, incredible album that I just totally love. I think the band really took themselves to new heights. I didn't think it was even possible because the 1-2 punch of Similitude and Great Adventure were just so excellent. And, you know, that's like a pair that I love with my whole heart, and that is just like perfection in music. But this, I can't even fathom how they can do this. They meet together for like seemingly a week and write this like masterpiece music and just have it come out, you know, not too much later, you know, a few months later they have this epic progressive masterpiece that's coming out. So I'm blown away by it. I know I'm probably a little bit over the top about it. I'm probably going to get people saying, well, you know, it's fine, but, you know, I don't think I'd talk that much about it. But it's just, I'm a super fan of Neal Morse. So anytime you get me going about Neal and his music, I just find so much there. There's just so much joy to experience. It's so positive, uplifting, fun music, and just really necessary and needed at these times when the world can sometimes feel so dark and problematic in various ways. And we've been going through a lot in the world, and just to have something that's so positive, that has a good message, that brings joy, that just has playful, fun music that just lifts you up from whatever you're feeling. I love it. I think they're doing great work, and I hope everyone checks this out and can find some appreciation for what they're doing, because it's really, really excellent what they're doing. It's done on an expert level, and they're incredible musicians who deserve to be heard. I wish they were more world famous than they are, so I think they deserve all the accolades, and I can't wait to see them perform these tracks live, both in the Morse Fest that I have virtual tickets for, and live in Seattle that I hope I can attend. I have tickets to because of my dad gifting them to me for my birthday. So really excited to see what they do and how they bring this amazing material onto a live stage. That should be really fascinating. So there you have it. That's my long rant, long video about Neal Morse music that I'm an unabashed fan. I'm just gonna gush because that's all I can do. I'm being totally honest about my opinions and don't want to tamper my excitement down at all. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the album like I do, and please let me know in the comments your thoughts about it. And I'm just so grateful for this music and that I have it to enjoy. So please subscribe to my channel if you like my coverage here. I do want to bring attention to a podcast I just started called The Best 10 that is on Spotify. I'll put the link to it in the description, where I play tracks from various albums that I cover on the channel. So there'll definitely be lots of Neal Morse music being featured. So I just want to bring attention to that. And please subscribe if you like what I'm doing once again. And as always, please just keep enjoying the music. That's what it's all about. I hope you guys feel excitement and joy about music. You know, even if it's not Neal Morse, whatever it is for you that you feel the way I feel about Neal Morse, please enjoy that music. I love it. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys hopefully in the next video. Bye.